Once again, thank you, East West Bank, for sponsoring this edition of the Baer Faxt Live. Obviously, we're from Art Basel Hong Kong. East West is the largest independent bank in Southern California and one of the top banks servicing the art world, which needs banking help, don't we all? East West believes in the power of art to inspire, transcend borders, build bridges, and nurture greater understanding. So today, we've had a collector, we've had an art advisor, we've had a gallerist, we've had someone from the art fair, and the last leg of what we really wanted to do was look at the art fair and the local scene from perspective of a museum curator. So Doryun Chong, Deputy Director, Chief Curator of the most significant place, in my mind, that's open in Asia for a museum, M+. Welcome to the Baer Faxt Live.
Thank you very much, Josh.
So how does a curator navigate an art fair? Do you have a process? What do you do?
I think these days, everybody gets a lot of information before the fair starts, and you really try to process it and digest it, slog through it.
So you're looking at all those PDFs?
And then not just myself, actually, the whole team of curators, we all get information from same sources, but as well as diverse other sources as well. We try to be systematic, we make a list, and we all try to go through the list together. But it's really more than one person's job, and prioritize them, and then really try to be as quick and efficient as possible starting day one. So we've got our system of, WhatsApp group and other software, online softwares that
How many of you are there?
Well, I mean,
on
the floor, probably we have, I would say, about 10 curators running around, including myself. So yeah, it's a lot of coordination.
And you're all WhatsApping, I'm at C104, come look at this?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
And when somebody says, I see something great, 9 people come scurrying around?
No, I think everybody's running around in their own orbits, and so they try to get to these different
places. So you've divided up.
Yeah.
You're doing the things that are to do with what categories? How would they be divided up?
No, we don't really divide it like that. But of course, everybody has a different interest areas or expertise, so they naturally prioritize them first. And in my role, I mean, I have my own subjective preferences, but also my role is to also oversee what all the other curators are seeing, and also make sometimes tough decisions of whether something should go forward or not.
Well, we'll get to the collecting part of it because that's a little different. But you talk about your subjective preferences. What might those be?
Well, I mean, I think it is hard to define, but my subjective preferences, I don't know if I should actually reveal that here.
Well, you could do it without saying which gallery, which artist. Though I'd love it if you did that, but you're probably not going to go there. Well, but it's like, okay, I'm interested in figurative art from the African diaspora, or I'm interested in classic photography, or I'm interested in, I mean, there's...
Well, my academic and curatorial expertise started out in looking at modern and contemporary art in East Asia. So I'm probably known as a specialist in Japanese post-war art. I've done a couple of projects when I was working for American institutions. I also have background in Korean modern and contemporary, and also a bit about Chinese contemporary as well. So those are the areas that I will sort of naturally have deeper knowledge in and also interest in. But because of my many years in working in American institutions before I moved over here, so I of course have affinity with American and European artists as well. Perhaps more exposure than some of my fellow curators in my team. So those are the areas that I might first go to.
That sounds like almost everything.
Well, no, there's also South Asia, Southeast Asia, and as you were saying, Africa. There is also whole diasporic worlds, which are all over the places as well. So some of my colleagues, for instance, might have deeper experiences and knowledge about Southeast Asia. So, I mean, I know something, but I will rely on them to explore that area first and foremost before I do.
I think it's important to say that in a sense, at many art fairs, there's museum curators walking around, but you're really quite focused and plus on actually making a number of acquisitions during the fair, aren't you? More than most museums and more art fairs. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but perhaps so. I can't really speak for other museums in other cities and other art fairs, but I can say that what's really unique, I feel, about Art Basel Hong Kong is that the Art Basel Hong Kong is the main fair, perhaps the only true fair. I mean, of course, there's Art Central as well, but this is the one that has been here longest. It has the biggest depth and breadth, really. And then we're not the only museum in the city. I always recognize that there's Hong Kong Museum of Art and Hong Kong Heritage Museum that have been around for decades. But as a museum that collects internationally and even globally, it really intersects with the identity of what Art Basel is. So we have one big institutional platform, which is M+, and then one big commercial platform, which is Art Basel Hong Kong. So we have naturally symbiotic relationship, kind of anchoring roles in nonprofit sector and the commercial sector. And before we opened 2.5 years ago, we were long in gestation and preparation for almost 10 years. And part of that work was building the collection. So to have all these hundreds, 200 galleries from all around the world coming to Hong Kong, bringing diverse group of artists and works from all over the world was, of course, they're there for us to help to build our collection. So yeah, that became very natural.
How proactive are you, though, saying to Gallery X in Bangkok or Gallery Y in Cologne, I'm interested in this artist. You should bring some stuff.
We do it in perhaps informal and casual ways, and it also depends on the kind of relationships we may have had built with certain, it's not just about particular edition of the art fair, that I think over the years, different galleries in different cities and different countries have learned that we are interested in certain artists or certain ideas, certain trends. So they already guess and sometimes actually directly ask, would you be interested in these kinds of works? And then we say yes, no, or maybe in this direction.
Being there today, were there any sort of themes that you could identify of what seemed to be sort of a bit of a zeitgeist, or certainly a zeitgeist of what's in the commercial market as opposed to a total zeitgeist? And in addition, did that shift from last year?
You know, I know that there are experts in the market really looking at the art fairs very carefully and extensively, much more so than I do, and then really talk about these trends, and I can't really profess to have that kind of an expertise.
Right, but you have a feeling just walking around.
I have the feeling for sure that this the whole fair feels much more vibrant and confident and energetic. Certainly the size and the volume have grown compared to last year from about 170 galleries to almost 240 galleries.
But what you call vibrant, I see as colorful.
Oh, just, yeah?
So it may be seeing the same thing in a different way. Vibrant is a positive word. Colorful is probably a bit of a pejorative.
Perhaps so, and I certainly didn't use vibrant as a euphemism for colorful.
No, but
No, but what I meant was really is that I see more diversity in mediums, in ideas, in practices, certainly than last year, and that's not the result of just the increase in number of galleries. I really feel that the galleries are feeling much more confident, or at least optimistic, that the bigger diversity and range of works will sell. Will
be acceptable, that they don't have to be fit in a narrow zone, that there's not just one ism that's possible, right?
Or paintings that can hang in somebody's living room, right?
I mean there's plenty of that here.
There's plenty of that. But,
and I understand they need to make the rent.
Yeah, I mean there's plenty of that in any art fair, to be perfectly honest.
And some fairs only that.
Some fairs are only that. And then when people say, especially with big art fairs, that, well, there was predominance of paintings, and I always wonder, is there ever not predominance of paintings really? Is there ever paint in a fair that has only large sculptures and ephemeral performance works and video installations? No, never really. It's a matter of how much of a mixture is it, how much percent of what's there is like really challenging art. But it's elastic. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less.
Well, one thing I've tended to notice in many of the fairs in the last 6 months is that while the world is at huge chaos, my instinct, and maybe growing up in the alternative space in the grungy New York of the 70s and 80s, where things were like really sort of rough and not so commercial, that I would have expected to see more politically based art, and that there's actually artists, maybe in the viewers, who are like, I see that in the news all the time. I want to like a little bit of a break from that. Do you think that's a observation you've seen, or? And I don't want to talk about, not to talk about specific politics in any place in the world, but in your interaction with artists, not just in the fairs, how much are they reaching into like these big issues now?
When you actually talk to artists, whether they're from here or another part of Asia or from outside, I think that they're all thinking about urgent political and social topics. How they interpret that or sublimate that into their practice. Of course, there's a great diversity in it, but I certainly believe that any serious artist doesn't not think about urgent issues.
They're citizens as well, and human beings seeing that. And I think it's an issue for all museums now to be dealing with. How do we express these things?
Yeah, and of course, all museums are dealing with all kinds of urgent issues as well as social pressure. We see that in North America, we see that in Western Europe. I mean, especially with the two wars going on, there's a lot of pressure that is happening, especially with institutions in the West. I mean, of course, we have our own issues, and then they also come and go as well. So this is just a part and parcel of what we do.
Now, do you realize how important strangers feel about M+, that it's like the greatest and most important game changer for art in our mind in Asia?
Do
you realize the high rank that we think, wow, it's coming here last year, and it's like, okay, they've been talking about this forever. I've been to like, there's 170 new museums in mainland China, or 17,000 or whatever. And here's another one, and it's like, there's all these vanity museums and all that. And I come in, and I'm a jaded New Yorker, of course, and I go, holy shit, Batman, this thing is great. It's like, this is the next rival to MoMA and the Tate. Do you know that's what we think?
Yes and no, and I think it was the art newspaper. I don't know if they actually printed it or it was in the podcast, but they certainly called M+ a game changer. They certainly used that word, and I don't think that was the only instance that has happened. I have certainly been hearing from colleagues from around the world, across Asia, from Europe, and now also from North America, because a lot of North Americans didn't come last year. They are now coming.
Well, a lot of museum directors came last year.
There are more also coming this year. Also,
so more than the patrons of the museum, it's the professionals in the museums that have really been making the pilgrimage, right?
They are, but also a lot of American galleries didn't make it last year. I think all the restrictions being lifted were a little bit too close to the deadlines, so they didn't make it, even if they really wanted to come back. But they are now coming back. So I've been telling my colleagues that, because they also ask, how do you feel? And I feel like our opening just keeps on going. For me, this feels like the third opening. Of course, we opened in November 2021 when the city was closed. So the only audiences who could come were all from Hong Kong. And a year ago, in March 2023, that was really the beginning of anybody from outside of Hong Kong, including mainland China, really started to come to. And plus, we literally had an opening dinner and our first party just a year ago. So that was our second opening. This still feels like yet another opening because there were so many colleagues that I certainly knew from my days in the United States who didn't make it. So just today, there were literally probably 20 people who told us that so happy to be back for the first time in 4 years or in 5 years. So welcoming them is yet another opening as well. So all of them, of course, say that wow, we heard great things about you, but it's just beyond what I've been hearing. So do I realize that? Yes, I do, but still hearing these words from treasured colleagues feel very fresh to me. So,
Well, it becomes this big responsibility. It's like if you lived in a country that was
Yeah.
told it's the happiest country in the world for 7 or 8 years, you're going to think, shit, the pressure's on me to keep this up. It's like the pressure's, you have all eyes on you.
Yeah, and then I think that we certainly invited that because our ambition was already set from the beginning. We were given the brief, we were given certain parcel of land, we were given certain resources to build a museum that rivals the names that you just mentioned, whether it's
So it's set up
modern.
to the patrons. So when you're going around the art fair, back to that a little bit, are you walking around with trustees of the museum, helping them decide what they should buy or what they would buy for you? I mean, how much of that are you like, okay, that George condo, you should have it. No, don't do it. How much of that is going on here?
Well, I think the system is a bit different than how you would do it perhaps in the United States and the UK, right? I mean, of course, we have our members of the board, and some of them are collectors, but here we're a publicly funded institution. We're not governmental, but we were established by the Hong Kong SAR government as a public body. We're part of the public body or statutory organization of West Kowloon Cultural District Authority. So it works quite differently than the American museum governance or even the UK museum governance. So the relationships that we have.
So the collection management of an American museum, they have to go through a committee
Of course.
to receive a gift
Yes.
or buy something. Do you?
We can certainly accept donations and gifts. I mean, of course, the very beginning of our collection building was a game-changing donation from Uli Sig of more than 1,500 works of Chinese contemporary art. So that really set the stage and started and set the model of what it means to be a donor and philanthropist to a public institution.
Now in Europe, I remember I had a big gallery back in the days, and I remember being in Europe for an opening, and the director says, I think we'll take that piece. And I went, well, when's it going to go before the committee? And what if they don't like it? And he said, you don't understand. That is the committee, and that's done. And there was no process. It was the
Okay.
director saying, we want that. And the risk was that if the city that funded the museum didn't like all that, he'd eventually lose his job. But it wasn't that there was a whole process in the team. And from Americans, we're used to like the curator sees it or a collector sees it and all that.
Yeah, in that sense, perhaps not so different. Yeah, I mean, of course, we have processes for sure. Yeah, rigorous processes.
This is not a really art fair, but a museum question of the big term is, what is it, BOGO? Buy one, give one?
Buy one, get one? Or give one.
Buy one, give one
I see.
has been
Yeah.
dominant in a strong
Yeah.
art market.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think of that? And does that happen here? Do galleries tell you
Yeah, I mean, it's...
you can have one if,
they don't tell us.
no, they tell the collector.
Yes.
And what do you think of
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I think these instances are happening, and ultimately, museums are not privy to certain conversations that the generous buyer/donor is having with the gallery, really. So ultimately, it really comes down to the museum deciding when you're offered a certain work or when you want a certain work, do we want it? Does it make sense in the collection? I think that's the question that the museum has to answer.
I think the museum should be leading that and going to the donor and saying, we want that. Can you get it? Rather than
Right.
the donor saying,
Agreed.
I bought the best one, you're going to have this other one.
Well, we can always reject. That's the first thing to say.
But if the guy's writing you a big check, it's hard to reject it.
No. I think if it doesn't fit into the mission and the identity of the collection, we won't just take something because somebody got a good deal and then it costs a lot. I mean, these are the kinds of conversations that the curators have to have with the committee, because our committee does a very good job of asking what is the relevance to the collection.
The committee being committee of curators or committee
committee of the overseers. Yeah. Board members and co-opted members who are experts in certain subject areas. And then they're there to really safeguard the due processes and transparency and the rigor of the whole process.
How often do your recommendations get declined?
Oh, that's not public information.
I don't mean content-wise. I mean, I don't like that artist. I'm not talking in a censorship way. I'm talking in a creative way.
No, exactly what I mean. No, what I think we're talking about exactly the same thing. That the question of, is this aesthetically, culturally, historically, and in terms of the collection, important and relevant? That's the only question that we need to ask, and then what we answer.
In New York, I have a friend who was a curator at the Whitney, and she said, 10 years in a row, I brought in Bruce Nauman, and they always said no. And that was kind of a sad, frustrating thing for the curator.
It does sound sad and frustrating, yes, of course. Well, but good on her or him for the perseverance.
Yes, she became a museum director someplace else. So
well, that's not so bad.
That's not so bad, and I'm not sure if the Whitney has one yet. So
wow, okay.
Is there anything as we move out of this that you would say to an audience about coming next year? I often say that this collaboration of the local museums and galleries to bring their best things during the fair is essential. Of like March 2025, why should someone come from whether it's, Osaka or Chicago to here? And is there something that you're doing that's special that's going to say, come?
So this year, 2024, is after being open for 2 years. This is the first year that we are able to roll out the full spectrum of exhibitions. So last autumn, October, November, we were able to announce the full lineup of exhibitions for 2024, about 10 exhibitions, small, medium, and large scale. And for a museum of our size and purview and ambition, we really should be having almost new exhibition opening every month. So we were very proud that we were able to do that, especially coming out of a very tough COVID-induced isolation period as a brand new institution. So it was a bit of a double whammy of these extraordinary situations to very quickly get back on the track, or get on the track for the first time, because we were never on it. So we are now able to repeat that every year. So come this autumn, then we'll be announcing the lineup of next 10 exhibitions, which will be very exciting. And just earlier this week, as part of what's called the International Culture Summit, organized by West Kowloon Cultural District that we are part of, one of the big announcements that we made is that we'll be presenting we believe, a groundbreaking exhibition of collaboration between Musée Picasso in Paris and our collection. So bringing some masterpieces from their collection, and of course they're used to touring their collection, but it's rarely been done, certainly never in Asia, where that collection comes into a conversation with an Asian art collection.
I can really see how that's going to drive traffic from whether it's Indonesia or
For sure.
Shanghai. It's like
Yeah.
it's clear
Yeah.
that that's like I've read about it. I've seen some.
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah.
MoMA and I saw a couple paintings, but to really put it there, I think that's going to be okay.
Yeah, so
here we
that's-
are, and here's what we've done.
Right, so that's one of the exhibitions that will be happening in about a year's time, but that will be one of about 10 exhibitions, including collection presentations that we regularly rotate and refresh. So you can really see at M Plus the diversity and reach and new perspectives that you won't see in other major global institutions in the West.
So as we roll out, it's important to say, is no BS. M Plus is the real deal. So, it's not just because you're sitting here. So thank you. It's a responsibility. So you better keep it up because, we're watching.
Yes, I feel it. We are all feeling it on our shoulder.
You should. So we'd like to give a big shout out to East West Bank for partnering with us and helping us be able to make these dynamic insights that our guests are making, being both knowledgeable and accessible. So thank you, Doryun.
Thank you so much, Josh.